1,500 businesses around the globe compromised in the latest ransomware attack. That's despite the targeted company limiting the extent of the damages. The White House says this shows U.S. companies must improve cybersecurity measures. Search efforts are back in full swing at the Miami Condo collapse. The city's mayor says the site is much safer now that the damaged building is no longer a threat. And the largest teachers union in the U.S. votes to promote critical race theory, describing it as a reasonable and appropriate framework for students to understand America's past and present. Tune in to Deep Dive as we explore these topics and more. Hello and welcome. This is Deep Dive and I'm Tiffany Meier. Let's kick off with an update on the latest ransomware attack. Up to 1,500 businesses around the world compromised by the attack. The White House saying Tuesday companies and government agencies need to up their cybersecurity game. The attack targeted U.S. IT firm Kaseya over the weekend. Kaseya CEO Fred Voccola said the company shut down the compromised program within an hour after the attack, potentially saving more businesses from getting compromised. That's according to a video the CEO posted online. It's still unclear the extent of the attack's impact. That's because Kaseya serves thousands of businesses around the world. Anywhere from 800,000 to millions could be affected. And even if the number of affected businesses remains only at 1,500, that still makes it one of the bigger cybersecurity attacks in history. The anonymous hackers who claimed responsibility have demanded $70 million in ransomware to restore all the affected businesses' data, although they've said they are willing to negotiate. Cybersecurity experts think it could be the same hackers REvil. That's the group who shut down the JBS meat company over Memorial Day. JBS ended up paying the $11 million ransom in Bitcoin. Voccola told Reuters on Monday it was hard to estimate just how big the impact of the attack may be, as those primarily affected were customers of Kaseya's customers. He refused to say whether he was ready to take the hackers up on the offer.
I can't comment yes, no, or maybe. And I'll tell you the reason for that is, I'm not an expert in this. I'm not a ransom expert. I've never, I don't do this for a living. There are people that do it for a living. We listen to the FBI, we listen to Homeland, we take their advice, and the advice is we have absolutely no comment either way. No one's contacted us.
Kaseya sells software tools to IT outsourcing shops, the businesses that often handle back office work for companies too small to have their own tech departments. One of those tools was hacked on Friday, allowing hackers to paralyze hundreds of businesses across 5 continents, from hundreds of supermarkets in Sweden to schools in New Zealand. Voccola said neither he nor investigators had seen any sign of hackers monitoring Kaseya's communications prior to the attack. He said in a statement, "Our global teams are working around the clock to get our customers back up and running," adding, "We understand that every second they are shut down, it impacts their livelihood, which is why we are working feverishly to get that resolved." White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki saying on Tuesday, U.S. and Russian officials will meet next week on cybersecurity issues. Ever since the Colonial Pipeline hacking, the White House has ramped up cybersecurity measures. Last month, Biden signed an executive order after the Colonial Pipeline attack. Biden said that will help improve the nation's cybersecurity. It seeks to better equip federal agencies with cybersecurity tools. It also encourages the private sector, which operates much of the nation's critical infrastructure, to improve its own cybersecurity standards. Under the new order, a system will be enabled on federal networks to continually monitor and respond to cyber threats. It also creates a cybersecurity safety review board, which will meet after major cyber attacks to analyze and make recommendations going forward. Around the same time, U.S. Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo said these attacks are here to stay and, if anything, will intensify. And Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco urged organizations to pay attention to the threat of ransomware attacks and to invest in cybersecurity defense and other preventative measures.
We will continue to use all of our tools and all of our resources to increase the cost and the consequences of ransomware attacks and other cyber-enabled attacks.
As for the federal level, the Justice Department recently gave ransomware attacks the same priority level as terrorism. This comes after several recent cyber attacks targeted key infrastructure and industries in the U.S. The Justice Department says they have created a task force in Washington that will coordinate all ransomware investigations. Currently, those investigations are handled by U.S. attorneys' offices in different states. Reuters says it will help authorities draw necessary connections between separate attacks. The Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General at the department tells Reuters it's a specialized process to ensure we track all ransomware cases, regardless of where it may be referred in this country. Adding, so you can make the connections between actors and work your way up to disrupt the whole chain. The department says this model has been used in terrorism cases, but never before with ransomware. The Justice Department also asked U.S. attorneys to also share information about other kinds of cybersecurity cases. Now, let's turn to an update on the Miami condo collapse. Search efforts are back in full swing. The city's mayor says rescue efforts are now at 100% capacity.
Looming threat of that building, the dangerous situation where debris could fall down is now eliminated. So we're operating at 100% capacity, and I'm very excited about that.
Officials say crews are now able to reach places they couldn't before, including bedrooms. Many of the victims are believed to have been sleeping at the time of the collapse. Officials say the demolition of the rest of the collapsed condo Sunday night makes it safer to search. Rescuers in Florida searched through fresh rubble Monday despite inclement weather. It's been nearly 2 weeks since the collapse, although the chance of finding survivors is down. A colonel with the Israeli search team says the outpouring of support keeps them going.
We get a huge hug from the community, a lot of help, a lot of goodwill, a lot of love. It gives us the motivation because the actions along the operation are very tough.
As of Monday, the death toll is 28, with another 117 still missing. Forecasts predict the Surfside area will likely avoid most of the oncoming tropical storm. Speaking of Tropical Storm Elsa, the Caribbean island nations are bracing for another especially active hurricane season. They are already struggling with the economic impact of the pandemic on their tourism-reliant economies. The storm system has already wreaked havoc in parts of Barbados, St. Lucia, Haiti, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic. Cuba's Meteorology Institute said it clocked Elsa moving northwest at 14 miles per hour, with sustained winds peaking near 60 miles per hour. Cuban state media report more than 100,000 people have been evacuated there, adding that new tornadoes were possible across South Florida on Monday night and across the Florida Peninsula on Tuesday. The National Hurricane Center says a tropical storm watch and storm surge watch are active for much of Florida's west coast. Meteorologists are forecasting an above-normal 2021 Atlantic hurricane season. That's following the 2020 season, the most active on record, producing 30 named tropical storms. Tropical storm Elsa is expected to pass near the Florida Keys early Tuesday, then move near over portions of the west coast of Florida on Tuesday and Wednesday, according to the NHC. Now let's turn from tropical storms to a different kind of storm, debates in the classroom. The National Education Association, or NEA, is furthering its support of critical race theory. It recently passed a resolution committing over $125,000 to advance its support for the theory, also known as CRT. The organization also says it will oppose attempts to ban the highly controversial 1619 Project, which claims the United States is and was racist since its founding. The NEA is the largest teachers' union in the U.S. The new business item on its website calls it reasonable and appropriate for curricula to be informed by critical race theory. Prior to the vote, the union approved another measure, this one seeking to research anti-CRT organizations. According to the NEA's website, the reason behind the measure is increasing opposition from organizations like the Heritage Foundation. The Washington-based conservative think tank hosts vocal opponents of CRT, including author and filmmaker Christopher Rufo. He's written extensively to expose CRT's Marxist origins, saying it undermines the foundations of American society and has infiltrated schools, businesses, and government agencies. Rufo posted on Twitter in response to the NEA's actions, saying, "We were born for this fight and will show no mercy to the corrupt ideologies who are running American education." As to why critical race theory has been fueling concerns, we sat down with author and speaker Trevor Loudon to get more insight over on China in Focus. Here's a clip. So there seems to be a recent shift, especially in the American education system, where it went from empathy and moral values to kind of a political correctness, social unrest, unprecedented racial tensions. And it seems like a lot of people are preaching, say, inclusion and empathy, but some are saying that's been twisted for political means. And both groups think they're in the right. So what do you think led to all this?
We talk about critical race theory, which is all the buzz right now. Now, that was invented by pro-Soviet communists in this country. People, back in the 90s, critical theory came out of the Frankfurt School, German communists who came to America in the 30s. And their idea was to criticize every aspect of American society, drag it through the mud. And then you had the white privilege scenario that came out of Noel Ignatin and Ted Allen, two former leaders of the pro-Chinese Communist Party, the Provisional Organizing Committee. So they promoted this idea of white privilege and white guilt. So if you're white, you're automatically guilty for every act of oppression in the country. And so the only way you can expiate that guilt is to become an anti-racist, to support Black Lives Matter, to virtue signal, to show how militantly anti-racist you are. And critical race theory has basically been using the energy of these disaffected young black kids who believe that America's racist and these gullible white kids who believe they're responsible for all the sins of America going back to the days of slavery. They're all busily working together to carry out the revolution, to carry out the socialist revolution. See, critical race theory is simply Marxism applied to race rather than class. So critical race theory means that the oppressed peoples of color, together with their white allies, will take up and rise up and take the power of the white capitalist patriarchy. So it's just as revolutionary as the old Marxist doctrine, but it's more powerful, it's more divisive because it's applied to race rather than class. And there are many more racial divisions in this country than there are class divisions. You can start out dirt poor and end up filthy rich. You can start out filthy rich and end up dirt poor, but your race is always with you.
So what are some steps to either mitigate or stem those risks?
We've got to resist that in every level. Get rid of critical race theory in your schools, every state's got to be getting it out of their government. Private companies have got to get it out of their systems, because this is Marxism. Get rid of all the Confucius institutes. Stop dealing with the Communist Party of China. Stop buying their goods. The main thing is take a moral stand and be bold about this. Always a pleasure. Thanks very much, Tiffany.
And for those just tuning in, that was author and speaker Trevor Loudon. To watch the full interview, check it out on China in Focus. The link will be down in the description down below. But what do you think? Let me know below. Thanks for tuning in to Deep Dive. I'm Tiffany Meier, and see you soon.